My setup has changed a little bit, you'll notice, and that is thanks to this guy. So let's break it down. What is going on, everybody? If you're new around here, my name is Finn Badgley. I'm a commercial fashion and portrait photographer and content creator. And yes, this thing is changing colors on my face, and that's exactly what we're talking about today: tube lights and how they can up your content creation. Now, just before we get into the video, make sure to drop a like, as it actually does make a difference and helps out the channel a lot to make sure the YouTube algorithm gods know to spread this content around, so I greatly appreciate that. Now, let's get on with the video. So, what are these funky lights and why is everyone using them right now? That is turning in the background because I don't have it balanced properly. There we go, that's better. Okay, so tube lights. This one in particular is the Nanlite Pavotube 15C. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. If not, feel free to correct me down in the comments below. I'm not sponsored by Nanlite. I picked this guy up as an additional video light that I will use for these videos and some of my cinematography work. And mainly I got it as an affordable way to stick a small RGB light somewhere that I may not be able to stick a larger fixture, and just use as an accent light, add some fill or something along those lines. Now, I have been using this light for a little bit, and I decided I would let you in on my thoughts to let you know if this is something that maybe you would look into getting for yourself. Now, there are a bunch of different brands producing these different tube lights now in varying different price points, and it can all get very confusing. Myself, I saw that these had decent reviews and were lower on the price spectrum, so I decided it was an easy way for me to dip my toe into the RGB tube light world to see if it was something that would be beneficial to my workflow. And thus far, honestly, I would say it has been. It's been something that's been a great little light to stick in different environments that has definitely upped my video creation a little bit. If you watched my video where a model shoots photographer when I was shaving my head, yes, I do have shorter hair now, or rather I shaved the sides. To do this, I was able to quickly and easily mount this light just off to the side, and that was something that with a larger light I would not be able to do, and it isn't as maneuverable. Myself, from the different projects that I work on, both photography and video, I have different grip equipment which suits this light beautifully. I can put it somewhere where it's nice and hidden, and it will give a nice accent light, a little kicker, a little bounce. It'll even work well if it is a close-up shot for a key light in some scenarios. Now, with this light being RGB, I am somebody who has relied heavily on being somebody who uses gels quite often, but this does allow me a little added flexibility, especially because I can have one color dialed in that I keep going back to, like this color right here that I like having in the background for my regular YouTube setups. I like that kind of teal color that it gives, and I just think it's pretty nice. Now, what are some practical applications for this guy? Well, because it is that tube style light, it can actually function as a practical, and a practical is when a light is actually in your scene, visible, and isn't out of frame pouring in. It's something that is there in the scene that is being either interacted with or just having as an accent light in the background or something to that degree. Just a light that is on in your scene. Similar tube lights to these I have seen used on different sets that I have worked on myself for both film and television, and they work very well to be placed just out of frame, or even in some circumstances as practical lights to add some extra depth either in the foreground, background, etc. Now, if you've looked into getting any of these at any point, you'll notice there are a ton of different brands and price points, from these to the Godox version, Godox, however you pronounce them. There are the Astera Titan tubes, and there are also the quasar science lights, and I don't have experience with all of these, but I know the asteras and the quasars specifically are more what are used on higher budget productions, and something like these guys are a little lower budget just because the asteras and the quasars have a little more functionality in terms of exactly what you can get out of them, but this guy serves everything that I need it to currently, and it works very well for me. It does have some different effects on it, kind of like you saw earlier with the rainbow color changing idea there. I'll go through a couple here just so you can see. We have kind of a police effect that works pretty well, and then we have just your standard CCT. You can change it from a cooler to a warmer light. I believe this changes from somewhere around 2900 to about 7000 Kelvin, so it allows you to match whatever bulbs you have in your scene quite easily. Then there's also the hue, saturation, and luminance setting that allows you to dial in the colors, kind of like I have for this. You can adjust the saturation from a very intense color to more just a pure white. And with that, you can change the color itself, so you're getting a different type of light, you get a different mood out of it, and it comes out with a bunch of different looks and allows you to not worry about carrying around a bunch of gels like I do a lot of the time. Then you also have different special effects where there's not only the cop car like we saw earlier, there is also, say, a candle that gives you a slight little flicker as if there's a flickering flame. That I am a big fan of, especially if you're shooting something with a candle or a campfire scene. It allows for a lot of flexibility there and you to add in that light rather than what we would typically do of pointing a light against like a gold reflector and shaking it a bunch to get that similar effect. Let's just change this guy back there. Now this light is battery powered and you can run it off of AC power, which makes it very versatile and I'm a big fan of. On the battery power at full brightness, it does last about 2.5 hours on paper, and in my real world use scenarios, I can confirm that that is pretty accurate to what I would get out of it whenever I am using it for a shoot or anything of that variety. I do like that versatility there. If it's somewhere that is more of a contained setup, I can plug it in, or if it's more on the go, then I can just have it run off of battery power. Now the one thing is I do wish it were a little bit brighter, but for being a 2-foot tube, I think the brightness level is decent. Again, I wish it would be a little brighter, but I'm not disappointed by the amount of light that comes out of it. I would give it a just okay. It works for what I need, but a little more would not hurt. Now, for something like that, you could obviously get a 4-foot tube or more of the 2-foot ones, but as a single tube, it's not a bad light source, especially for something like an accent light, a background light, anything of that variety. It's not something you would use too often as a key light, as again, it isn't super bright. You would need to have it pretty close to your subject, but if you're doing something of a close-up style shot, it will work for what you need. As for the build quality of this light, honestly, for something that is in a lower price point, it actually does feel pretty solid. It feels like I could honestly drop it quite a few times, not that I'm going to, but that I could, and it would take a bit of a beating. Now, another thing that I definitely appreciate, it's just these little attentions to detail, like the Velcro cable ties, so that way you can wrap up the AC adapter, and you can also have this rubber band on it, so that way it allows you to attach it to a light stand, and that way you don't have this power brick just dangling around. It's these little attentions to detail that I personally very much appreciate. if you enjoyed this video and got some value out of it, be sure to drop a like down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the bell to be notified when I post new videos so you never miss an upload. Work hard, rest often, and as always, I will see you on the next one. I drank all my water and it's the beginning of the video. So, see how this goes.